Hi everyone. The purpose of this online professional development is to help you how to navigate the planning and pacing guide for language arts. So I'm going to be walking you through step by step to show you not only how to get to the pacing guide, how to bookmark it on your computer, and just how to navigate some of the links to better help you with your lesson planning. So you're going to want to start at fcps.edu. If you already have the planning and pacing guide favorited on your browser, you can skip this step. Okay. And while you're here, you're going to click on Full Menu, Current Employees. You're going to scroll down to Employee Resources. And here you're going to look for the Blackboard login, which is right here under Blackboard. Log into Blackboard. I'm already logged in, but it will prompt you to log in with your username and password, the same username and password that you use for logging into your computer and your email and every other resource within Fairfax County. Okay, so once you're there, your screen might look something like this. You're going to click up at the top where it says eCart, and you're going to click on the eCart resource search. And here's where you're going to search for the planning and pacing guide, okay? So you can type in planning and pacing guide right on the search bar and hit enter. And to narrow those results, you can come over to these boxes here. So I'm just going to click language arts. And since I work in 4th grade, I teach 4th grade, I'm going to narrow it by grade level. Otherwise, you're going to be clicking through quite a few links to try and find it. And as you can see, that narrowed it down and it's right here. Okay, so you can click right on that link. And this is the overview for the entire year for 4th grade. So you can see it's broken down by a throughout the year for reading and writing and all the quarters 1 through 4. Okay. If you don't have it bookmarked on your computer, you're going to click that star and then it will appear at the top of your browser. And you can name it anything you want. I already have this page bookmarked, so you can see that mine is blued out already. And you can do this, I'm using Chrome, Google Chrome, but you can certainly do this in Internet Explorer as well. Okay, once you bookmark it to the top of your page, it will always be there for you. You don't have to keep searching through Blackboard or look anywhere else. And because it's a live link, and it's bookmarked on your page, it will update. You can see that quarter 4 right now is not completed from the county, so we are not able to click on those links yet, but you will be able to soon. So that's already up there, it will update. You don't have to do anything to update this page once you bookmark it, okay? So we're going to go ahead and explore a unit just so I can walk you through some of the links on the planning and pacing guide that are available to you so that you can really dig deep into it and use some of these resources in planning your lessons for your lesson plans. Okay. In 4th grade, we just finished a historical unit fiction, so I'm going to go ahead and walk you through that. Now, I like to keep this page open so that I don't have to keep clicking the back button up here. So on any of these links, I usually right-click and open in a new tab. That way, if I want to, I can kind of go back and forth between these as I need to. Okay. So on each pacing guide, it has teacher notes, word study, it links you to the Fairfax County Program of Studies, the yearly overview, and our literacy framework. Okay. For planning, we're going to be looking at the teacher notes. Okay, so this is what a standard pacing guide looks like for any unit in grades K through 6. All of the links at the top are very similar, but the content is going to be different. So I'm going to walk you through each of these links. Okay. The overview of each unit is listed at the top of the planning and pacing guide. And this is where it just tells you a little bit about the genre. It tells you a little bit of what this unit is all about and what your readers might be doing. Okay. If you click on any of these links up here at the top, it will take you to that section within this entire page. So we're going to be staying in this Unit 5 historical fiction, and all of these links cover that unit. So if I click Enduring Understandings, it jumps down to the Understandings and Essential Questions. These are the understandings that we want our students to understand by the end of the unit. These are the questions that we want to be able to have our students answer at the end of the unit and what we should be able to answer about our students. I'm going to scroll back up to the top and now move to unit goals. Our unit goals for this unit are what we want our students to accomplish by the end of the unit. I like to think of these as the overarching goals. When we look at the standards, they're very specific, but these are the bigger goals or the bigger ideas that we really want to hit home with for our students. Okay, if I scroll back up to the top, the next link are the standards. And these are the standards that are ongoing throughout the year for language arts, but these are specifically addressed or need to be addressed in our lessons throughout this particular unit. So when we plan our lessons for historical fiction or this unit, Unit 5, we want to take one of these standards and use that and also a unit goal to help plan our lesson. You don't have to keep scrolling up to the top, but I really want to show you how you can easily manage the planning and pacing guide by clicking on the links, because sometimes it's a lot to keep scrolling up and down. Okay, this link is revisiting throughout the year, and this is just to kind of keep us grounded in what we want our students to be doing all year long, as in terms of independent reading and writing about reading. This also has a section about interactive read aloud and whole class conversations. This section can vary from unit to unit, but it's really good for us to keep in mind as to what we want our students doing throughout the entire year and how it pertains to this particular unit that we're working on. The next link is considering word study, and I know sometimes it's so hard to get that word study in. So this part of the pacing guide gives some really great ideas as to how you can embed word study, the word study continuum, into this particular unit. So again, with some of these, I might right-click on these to open those up into new windows so I don't lose my place. The next link are the considerations for this particular unit. And every unit has a different amount of considerations. And these are listed below to keep in mind to help us develop our students' understanding of this particular unit's content. And planning with the understandings and questions in mind along with these considerations is really helpful, because then it kind of gets you to understand, okay, what do I really need to keep in mind when planning? What do my students really need to know? So you'll see, as I'm going to scroll down slowly, okay, each consideration has a title and then information about that consideration. What does it mean? What does it look like? And what are some things you could be doing in your classroom? I really like how some of the units have some ideas for lessons and read alouds that go along with it. That's been really helpful when they embed that in the consideration. Sometimes there's really helpful charts in the considerations, such as these, a gradual release model, which helps me plan for scaffolds for my students. And this pacing guide is especially helpful because it has some videos embedded. Not all the pacing guides have that for every single unit, but it might help you visualize what something could look like in your classroom. And again, I would just right-click on those so that I save my spot in the pacing guide, okay? So those are the considerations that we're really asking you to read all of them ahead of time before we come to CLT and unpack them. This way we have a really big idea as to what this unit is all about, and then you become an expert in that one consideration that you're filling out before CLT, so that when we come to CLT, we can have a genuine discussion about all the considerations so that we really can become experts about in this genre and be able to talk about what we want our students to know. So it's really important to read all of those considerations. And I've really noticed for myself while teaching these units, if I'm kind of struggling with what I should teach next, I kind of go back to all those considerations and think about, okay, what are some of these big things to consider that I haven't really considered yet for my students? So that's been really helpful. So that's really a big bulk of your planning and pacing guide are the considerations. Okay. If you click on this assessment tab, it gives you, the pacing guide gives you some great assessment questions to use for pre and post assessments. A lot of them are open-ended, but they do have some testing connection questions as well, which are questions that your students might see on the SOL. They're SOL testing connection questions. So when planning for assessment, it's a good idea to use the questions in the planning and pacing guide. They're already done for you. Sometimes under the pre-assessment, it will also have a link for a pre-assessment. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at that. Okay, it tells you the directions, what you might say, the questions you could ask. Sometimes the pre-assessments will even offer a text that you can use for the grade level. So I really love these because I might use this for the pre-assessment and the post-assessment. It's already done for me. I know this is what should be assessed. I know this is what the state wants you to assess. I might add in some of those related test question stems for my students to get them used to those SOL type questions. So I really like that the pacing guide has this because it doesn't require me to take much time to create an assessment for my students. Okay, we're going to scroll back up. If you click on the link lesson ideas, these are some possible teaching points to consider when planning a particular unit of study. And you'll notice that they're grouped in a chart and they're grouped by the unit goals. So these in this column are all unit goals, and these are some possible lessons that go along with that. There isn't necessarily a best sequence to teach it. It's really what you think for your students, what works best, because some lessons might be better suited to come first and some might be better suited to come later depending on your pre-assessment or what you already know about your students. You can also use any of these lessons in a small group, in one-on-one reading conferences, or for your whole class lessons. Okay, so these lessons, a lot of them are already completed for you by reading teachers in the language arts office throughout the county. They worked really hard to develop this over the summer. And some are not linked yet, but those are definitely teaching points that you could develop for your lessons. So I'm just going to show you what one lesson might look like. I'll just click on this one, and this one is actually from the Reading Strategies book. So I like to, again, right-click on that so that I don't lose my space in this document, because we all know how frustrating that can be. Okay. This lesson plan gives you the what are you teaching. It gives you the why you're teaching it. This what and why I like to use as my reader's statement. So when I introduce a lesson to my class, I might have these statements on the anchor chart. And I tell students what we're doing today and the importance of why we're doing that. The how is how you model that lesson. So this would be your instructional strategies part of your lesson plan. And some of the lessons are really great because it offers you 2 different ways to do that. Not all of them do, but some do, and I have found that really helpful because I can either pick one of the options that works best for my students, or I might think, you know what, this is a really hard goal and I need a couple of days on this, so I might try modeling it option 1 the first day and option 2 another way. So this is, again, the how of your lesson. You would be modeling this for your students, letting them try it with you, and then trying it on their own during the workshop, during the independent reading time. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. And I had that window open from before, so I'm going to close out of that, and we're back to the planning and pacing guide. So as you scroll down, you can see that a lot of the lessons are linked, and a lot of them are unlinked, which just means you need to develop that lesson plan if that is a good goal for your students, if you feel that is a good goal. Okay. The next link are supports for you. And I've gotten a lot of people asking me about how to help support their students. You know, when your students just maybe aren't getting an idea, the pacing guide really is helpful with this because it tells you some things your students might be struggling with. So, for example, the left side of this column say, if students have trouble doing this, here are some things you could try. And I have found this especially helpful when I'm planning my guided reading groups. These are some great scaffolds to put into place for your students who maybe didn't quite get the whole group lesson. So maybe it's just 4 or 5 students that you need to work with in a small group because they had trouble with that. Here are some lesson or teaching points that you can try with them. So it gives quite a few ideas for scaffolds for that. And these are things that, in your lesson plan, when you're modeling and doing those instructional strategies and planning for that, this is some differentiation you might want to plan for your students. Some scaffolds to have in your back pocket. If something during the lesson they're not quite understanding, you have another way of phrasing that for them. Okay. Oops, sorry. The last link of this pacing guide are resources. Okay, and here in the resources are some things that are available for you to use in conjunction with the teaching points and lesson plans listed above. So it might give you some print resources that are helpful for this particular unit. And this is also an eCart resource. So earlier I showed you how to get into Blackboard. And this is the eCart resource search. So you could search for that resource within Blackboard. Okay. The one other area I wanted to show you was the interactive read aloud piece, which doesn't have a link at the top, but it's right below the lesson planning. Okay, so this is a great resource because it gives you some suggested mentor text for that particular unit. And I have found this really helpful because if I'm not particularly savvy in a unit, if it's not my favorite unit or I don't know a lot of text in that genre, I can look and see what the pacing guide is suggesting for me and pull some text based on what they recommend. They've also started to add some novels, especially for the upper grades, and some Mayan and Tumble book text as well. So this is a great resource to look at as well. Some of the pacing guides also have an interactive read aloud example, and you can right click on that and again open that in a new tab. And they've developed some language that you can use during an interactive read aloud. And this is just suggested language. You definitely don't have to use this exact language. You would definitely want to modify or change it for what your teaching point is or what's best for your students. Okay. Okay. It's a long document. I know it's a lot to look at and sometimes it can be overwhelming, but I really like these links at the top because after you're done exploring the entire unit, you kind of know where you need to go in order to plan your lessons. And like I said, it's a very similar format for all the units, for all of the grade levels. So I like that now, once you're able to navigate one of the pages, it's pretty simple to navigate all of the pages. Okay. The Language Arts Office in Fairfax County and other reading teachers throughout the county worked really hard to publish this document for us to use. It includes many published authors and experts in literacy, as you can see by some of the references listed throughout the planning and pacing guide. So it's really a document to help support you and to help guide you when you're teaching some of these new units. So I really hope this online professional development has been helpful for you for planning the pacing guide. If you could leave a comment, that would be great so that I know what was helpful for you. So if you could tell me just one thing that you learned from this professional development and maybe one thing that you might try using in your teaching from the planning and pacing guide. That would be wonderful so that I can kind of see where we need to go from there with using this document. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave that in the comments as well, or come see me or email me. I'm happy to help anytime with utilizing this document or any other documents that you saw me use today on the laptop. Okay, thank you so much for your time.